Hi, welcome to Valley Beth Shalom. I'm Rabbi Noah Farkas, and this is our new series of programs leading up to the high holidays called Chesed Heroes. Chesed means loving kindness, and between now and the high holidays, I'll be interviewing really wonderful people from all over the country, especially here in Los Angeles, who are doing the work of bringing loving kindness to many, many other people. And today I am so happy to invite my good friend, Emily Kane Miller, who is both the founder and CEO of a company called Ethos Giving, and she'll speak about that. But she's also the founder and organizer of the Emergency Supply Donor Group, or ESDG, which has been instrumental in helping hospitals and other medical facilities receive personal protective equipment, PPE, during this COVID pandemic. Emily, it's so nice to see you. Welcome to Valley Beth Shalom and into my office, so to speak. How are you?
Good. It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit about what is ESDG and what does it do?
Absolutely. So the Emergency Supply Donor Group, which is a mouthful, is a nonprofit that we created right when COVID-19 started. And the mission is very simple. In Los Angeles County, we knew that there were hospitals that weren't getting the PPE that they needed. And we knew at the same time there were generous donors that would want to help ameliorate that issue, and they weren't sure how to connect. And we also knew that there were a number of hospitals that had development directors and leaders who could raise their hand and say, we need help. And there were also many hospitals that didn't, for all sorts of reasons. But we wanted to even the playing field and to say, if you're a hospital in Los Angeles County that needs PPE and you're treating COVID patients, that we're going to create a space for you to log on, tell the world what you need. And if we were able to, with our community network, help leverage donations, that we would raise that money, go work with our vendors, buy the PPE and deliver it to your doorsteps. And so far we've been able to raise about $275,000. We've administered tens of thousands of units of PPE, face shields, face masks, goggles, things that I didn't even know existed before coronavirus. And it's been pretty amazing to see how folks are so grateful to have an avenue to successfully give right now.
That's really amazing. The work that you're doing is just so great. So tell me then, how did you get into it? Like I know you see the need and all of that, but there must have been something or some story that connected you to COVID-19 and to finding this PPE.
So, my background is in philanthropy and CSR. And so my whole career, I've worked with generous folks who have been able to help the community in various ways. And so that's my lens that I look at the world through. Like, how can people who have resources help people who have less resources, and how can we fix problems? And so when coronavirus came, we understood that it was going to be a major problem. I think everyone was clear that there wasn't enough PPE, but I don't think that we had clarity around how quickly the supplies were depleting. And my sister-in-law happens to be a resident at a local Los Angeles hospital. And she called my husband and I and said that they had a meeting. It was clear from leadership that there were not enough face masks and that they needed to start being ready to bring their own PPE, that the residents and other healthcare professionals needed to bring their own PPE. And I heard that and I felt like, in my career, I have been able to help donors bring funding to the table to fix all sorts of things. Certainly this could be fixable. And so we created, immediately got on the phone, called folks, tried to figure out who was already organizing around this, what other PPE drives were happening, how could we plug in to help my sister-in-law's hospital. And what we found out was there wasn't really a coordinating effort that was countywide. Different hospitals were doing different drives. There were some groups that were coming in and providing support, but there wasn't like an overall blanket resource. And so we created this opportunity called the Greater Los Angeles Hospital Registry. That's a tool, much like a wedding registry, where you can go on and say, I need 1,000 of these, 15 of these, 40 of these, and made it really easier for donors to see, like, okay, like if I donate $1,000, I can fulfill all of the, hand sanitizer that Kaiser Woodland Hills needs, and that means something to me, and I'm going to do it. And so we were able to help get individual donations, and we were also able to get larger funders and corporations to come in at bigger dollar levels and really make a difference.
Wow. So would you say it's sort of like the Craigslist for PPE through a nonprofit, like where people just kind of post like what they need and then people can see and decide whether they want to fulfill that or not, or a GoFundMe page, or like what would you?
It's more like Zola. Like if you have a friend, if you've ever wanted to figure out like what your friend registered for their wedding,
Mm-hmm.
like you don't want to get them their fourth set of knives because they already have it. And so it's just a way to coordinate generosity. And also kind of going back to the wedding metaphor, you're really busy, right? I mean, these hospitals are so busy. They are dealing with a pandemic. You don't want to have 50 people calling them saying, what do you need? And the hospital can just point to the registry and say, hey, all our information's here. We appreciate your generosity. Check it out online. And so that was really the big idea. Super simple concept.
Right. And it's so amazing because this has been written about in newspapers, your organization that you founded. It's been in, I think, Jewish newspapers, but also I think it was in the LA Times and a couple other places. It was really great. And what's really cool is that it's sort of an extension of your actual career, like what you do for a living, which most people don't know is that what Emily is involved with, and I'll let you definitely talk about all this, is sort of corporate responsibility. There's a technical term for it. Remind me, what's the technical term for?
CSR, corporate social responsibility, is the banner.
So maybe you talk about that for a minute, about how you leverage your CSR expertise to help create this registry and to help move PPE around the country.
County. That's even more ambitious than I am, Noah. So corporate social responsibility is a concept that's been around in the United States since the 1950s. And it's really sort of taken that, the last 70 years to grow into itself. And in different moments in time has meant different things, but like in the way that you went to rabbinical school or I went to law school, there's no CSR school. There isn't sort of a national standard. There isn't a national test that you take. There isn't a national audit like you would have for CPAs. And so it can really be its own thing depending on what the leader of the organization is looking for. And so from my vantage point, I've been able in my career to work with some really ambitious companies that have wanted CSR to be at the forefront of who they are and to really create change in society. And I saw the value of that when it's leader-led and ambitious. And you also see examples where people say that they're doing amazing things and it turns out they're not that special. And from my perspective, we need corporations to do more, not less. We need corporate leaders to be empowered to say, hey, not only can you change this, but you should, and you have a personal responsibility. There's an ethical obligation for your organization to really put your thumb on the scale. And I built this firm, Ethos Giving, to help ambitious leaders that were really focused on social impact move the needle and build relationships and partnerships with public organizations, elected officials, public agencies that really focused on social change, where they said, okay, we can write a check, we can bring in our people and our horsepower from our organization, we can write op-eds, our name carries weight, we can push for legislative change, and that people really start to see themselves as a change agent. And it's a package. It's not like, yeah, here's a check for $500,000, send me an annual report, I hope it goes well. Like, this is very deep, personal, get your fingernails dirty, giving back. So I ultimately, that's my frame of reference. I'm looking to disrupt this field and really push it into a space that I think is making the world a better place. And it's not to say that that's easy. I think sometimes people think that because something is good, that it's easy, that if something is revolving around kindness, that it's simple. And this work is hard. It takes diligence. In the same way that, anything you do in your life that's excellent, it takes craft, it takes leadership, it takes expertise. And so we're really trying to bring that value to as many people as possible to help them accomplish more ambitious engagement in social impact.
So is there an example of either a client or someone publicly that does good corporate social responsibility? Like make it really concrete for us.
Sure. So I would say like the kind of gold standard examples are places like Patagonia and Ben and Jerry's. These are brands and corporations that are really known for being out in front on issues, environmentalism in Patagonia's case, social justice issues in Ben and Jerry's case. And they really put their money where their mouth is. They tie it to their brand. They bring it into how they treat their employees. They engage with their financials and how they do their investments as an organization. They work with people who live their values, and it's really holistic. And I think, in Los Angeles, there's an organization that's founded here called Sweet Green. It's a salad company, and again, with that idea, the folks who started that company from its very beginning said, we want to buy locally sourced food that's good for the environment to raise. We want to be able to feed people healthy food and not have it be something that's just for folks that have, uber big checkbooks, but make it as affordable as we can. And we want to make sure that we're part of the community fabric and giving back. And actually, when COVID started, they were one of the first companies to come out and say, we want to feed frontline healthcare workers and say thank you. And they started these salad depots in hospitals to get healthy, fresh food to frontline healthcare workers. So I think like the thing that's the differentiator is that you have a leader or a leadership team that is really thinking from a place of soulfulness, right? A place of chesed, to say, how can we be of service right now? How can we as an organization, as a corporation, bring value to our community and bring kindness? And yes, do it in a way that our brand is out there. It's not a secret, but the driver is that we're making people's lives better, not that somebody's buying the salad or somebody's buying the puffer vest or the ice cream. And so I think it's really about like who drives this? Is it somebody on the marketing team who's trying to sell more stuff? Or is it somebody who, as I call it, your chief soul officer, whatever that role is, CSR, social impact, who's really saying like, what's the right thing to do and how can we lead from that perspective?
Yeah, I love that. So let's bring it together now, right?
Yeah.
So how did you leverage the CSR world that you're in and disrupting and cultivating new leaders with the PPE and COVID situation? How's that working?
Yeah. So look, I am really lucky to have some very special clients who I think are those like heart forward leaders. And so I was able to call them and say, I'm not used to being someone who's asking. I'm used to being on the donor side and putting together the deals. But the world is upside down and I feel a moral obligation to help put PPE on people's faces. Do you want to join me? And so I had clients like Teeks, which is a direct-to-consumer shoe company, Aspiration, which is a bank, La Loupe, which is a fashion brand, who came on early and said, yeah, like we want to do this and we want this to be part of our corporate give back strategy. And so, that was great because I had those personal relationships. From there, I was able to understand, what do corporations need to feel good about making a gift, and how can I really easily package a yes for them? And so, we did this work on 100% voluntary basis. There's no overhead. So every dollar somebody put in, they were getting $1 worth of PPE. I think that was really important. And then we also had a really tight communications package where we said, we're going to be able to share this information on all of these social channels and thank you in a way that will be effective, and let folks know that you showed up for Angelinos and showed up for healthcare workers. And because I've sat on the other side of the table for so long, I think I was able to translate and, code switch to help people get to yes. And it's, it's interesting. I think something that I learned, I was so afraid to ask for something because I'm not an asker, right? Like that's not my job. And as soon as I started opening up and being vulnerable to that, the reaction of people's gratitude that they had something they could give to and something that they could like feel good about as a COVID response, like they were grateful that I asked. And I was like, who's grateful for somebody saying, can you give me $25,000? But like, it taught me a lot to, get out of your own way and not worry about the things that you think you're supposed to be doing, and just go with it.
I love that. So like, I think, I'm not really an asker too, but when I work with folks who want to support the community or you just volunteer, right? There's a good feeling that comes when you do an act of chesed, a loving kindness for someone else. It's almost there is an exchange, right? The exchange isn't just money though. The what you give the person who is able to support the initiative you care about is you give them a sense of purpose, you give them a sense of caring, of humanity, you give them a sense of being a warm and justified human being, and because it's all true, it's verified in that sense. And so every time you give a dollar or you have support, what you're receiving in return is not just gratitude, because that's not why you should give. You shouldn't just give to get the thank you. You give because it gives you purpose. You give because it gives you a sense of meaning in your life. It gives you an orientation towards goodness, right? So maybe talk a little bit about that, because I know maybe it's a little philosophical, but like think about your upbringing for a minute. You grew up in the Jewish community. I think you're a day school kid. You went to full-time Jewish day school. You went to Jewish camps, right? You spent some time in Israel. You married a wonderful Jewish man. And
Yeah,
and
everyone
now
felt he's amazing.
and so now like tell me what the word chesed means to you. This word that we all grew up on and like cut our teeth on in Jewish summer camp and stuff like that, singing songs about it. But like, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, and I think I've been thinking about this word more than I realized, sort of as I was preparing for this conversation. There's a social justice luminary named Brian Stevenson who runs an organization called Equal Justice Initiative, and he's worked with death row inmates and really has seen like the closest, he's gotten very close to pain and very close to humanity, and he has a whole conversation that he leads around getting proximate. Right. That I don't think and I heard him speak like 3 years ago, and it's some of these people who like pierce your heart, and it definitely it clearly comes from my Jewish upbringing. As you said, I went to Schechter. I grew up in URJ camps, and I actually thought I was going to be a rabbi at some point. So my heart is very open to the teachings of our faith and our tradition, and certainly I'm on the path that I'm on professionally 100% because of my Jewish upbringing and my belief that I have the ability and the obligation to make the world a better place, and that I'm able to do that through my professional life is a huge blessing. Most of the work that I've done, if I'm being honest with myself, has been arm's length. It's about policy, it's about legislation, it's about gifts that are very important and I think ultimately are creating major value that I'm really proud of. But they haven't been proximate, right? Like it hasn't been about identifying a need and understanding how scared somebody is and that I have the ability to help. And so with this gift, that we created with ESDG and the registry, it really opened a new door for me in understanding my power as an individual and my power as a platform, right? Like with the business that I've created and the relationships that I've created, to protect somebody. And like that act of chesed and that act of kindness, like I feel like every time we drop off a gift, I feel like I physically am protecting people on the front lines of our healthcare, and we celebrate Shabbat in our home every Friday night. We bless our children, and that feeling of being able to try to put a shield around people is something that feels so Jewish, right? And so maternal. And being able to do that in this work feels like the ultimate act of chesed, the ultimate act of kindness, protecting somebody's health, protecting somebody's ability to be able to feel safe, keeping us safe, is so Jewish, is so critical. And, to be able to not only be able to do that myself, but then to create that avenue for other people has been extremely empowering. And I think, to your point, this is a time of brokenness and a time of pain and feeling really scared, right? Just on like a fundamental sort of like mammalian level. Like this is not an easy time to be a human. And this has been incredible medicine for me to be able to wake up and know that part of what I'm spending my time on every day is this work. And to be able to give back, to your point around like feeling that purpose in my day, you know, not to get too meta about it, but like the ripples of that from me to the people who we engage with, to the doctors, to our community writ large, has certainly kept me more whole in this very broken time.
That's really wonderful. I mean, listen, we're 4 weeks and a couple of days from Rosh Hashanah, right? And in our tradition, you and my shared tradition, Rosh Hashanah means a lot of things. It's a new year. It's a time of reflection. It's called the days of awe, right? The days of almost fearfulness or feeling overwhelmed, right? But that's not the mood and the tone that I think I'm looking for to set this year. I don't need a God that holds out a book and judges me right now. I don't need a God that reminds me of everything I failed at, because I already feel put upon, and in many ways I feel like a failure because, you know, I don't have any control. I don't have control over the world. I don't have control over the politics. I don't have control over the business. I don't have barely have control over the education of my kids, and it's almost like I have too much control because my kids aren't going to school like a normal school, right? Everything just feels like we just walked right into a hurricane, and that's not the image I want to think about. And so, there's a prayer called the Untitled Chapter, which is very judgy in the beginning, but very not at the end. And so I'm looking at that end piece where it's about not a God who judges me, but a God that takes account of me, like a shepherd would a sheep for his sheep or her sheep, right? Every shepherd knows every one of the sheep in their flock and knows which one needs a little bit more food and which one wanders off at night. That's what a shepherd does, is that sort of level of intimacy. And when we think about the metaphors that we talk about, you know, we also talk about the God of compassion and the God of grace, right? El Rachum v'Chanun, Erech Apayim Rav Chesed ve'emet. That's what we're looking at, is that God is slow to anger and is just abounding, overflowing in loving kindness. And I think that's the image of God, the God picture, if you will, that we need right now, is a God that allows us to feel love so that we can find love within ourselves, share with each other. So I guess by closing, I want to ask you, because you are a Jew and we are going to this new year, what are you holding on to this year for yourself? What are the things that you want to hold on to? What are the things maybe you want to let go? How, if you could, make this coming year, 5781, a year of Chesed, what would that look like for you?
Please God, right? The thing that I'd like to hold on to, and there was a really powerful teaching. We were able to zoom in for some Shavuot learnings. And there was a powerful teaching that essentially focused on this idea of our obligation to not be petrified, our obligation to push through being scared and to continue to show up for the work of the world and to be a partner with God. And I'm definitely someone who's trepidatious. I'm definitely one of those people who always wants everything to be perfect and wants my people to be safe and know all of the unknowns. And so, that I needed that Torah, and if I can take something from 5780, and there's a lot that I hope we can leave behind, and the pain and the suffering, but so many of us have seen parts of ourselves that we didn't know we had, and strength that we were required to bring up that maybe we hadn't ever had to conjure before. And so I hope that I can take that sense of fortitude and bravery and sort of mandate to push through that 5780 has required of us, and not lose that. And God willing, the pandemic will be done and there will be a vaccine, and we won't need to have this as a reality on a day-to-day basis. But I do hope that that sense of courage is something I can bring with me. And, you know, in terms of this idea of chesed and grace, I think, you know, as we continue to soldier through this moment, which we will certainly have as least as a big piece of 5781, that's almost certain. I think people are going to be quicker to anger, more frustrated. There's going to be more that is disappointing. I think we're losing nuance. We're heightening in judgment. And if we can give people grace, if we can sort of understand what it looks like to put on our metaphorical masks, like protect each other, and care about protecting each other from one another and with one another, I think that this will be a moment that brings value to our community and brings value to ourselves. And I think also the other thing, you know, I have little kids. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and it's amazing the level that they're watching right now is something that has just continued to put me in awe. And if they can see us as the grown-ups being graceful, showing gratitude, being grateful that we get to wake up for another day and be healthy and breathe and be there to fight this fight, I think that's an incredible example that we can have for our children and our community. And so I hope 5781 brings an opportunity for me to be the parent that will make my kids proud and give them modeling of what it looks like to take on this moment.
Amen to that. I think maybe we should just leave it there. That was really beautiful. If folks want to help you out with your project, how do they do that?
Absolutely. So unfortunately, PPE is still needed. I wish that weren't the case. It's very clear that hospitals still don't have enough. So if you are interested in learning more, you can go to emergencysupplydonorgroup.org and find out more about us. And from there, you'll have all the links that you need, including email contact to reach out to me. And we're happy to answer any questions. And, you know, no gift is too small. That's really true. So if you or a kid in your family wants to support with a $5 donation, we would love to help make that happen. Again, to help people feel like they're being of service right now is a big part of the work and why we're doing it.
Amazing. What's that website one more time?
www.emergencysupplydonorgroup.org.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily. Kane Miller, for joining us as the founder and CEO of Ethos Giving, but also the creator of ESDG.org, the amazing registry that has been connecting philanthropic dollars with hospitals and other medical institutions that need PPE in this very, very challenging time. I want to thank you for being with me and with all of us here, and I want to wish you Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Emily joins us as part of our Chesed Heroes project, which is part of our Elu Learning, getting ready for the new year for 5781 as we explore a year of Chesed, a year of loving kindness together. Thanks again for everyone for joining us. If you want to learn more about her project or about what else we're doing at Valley Beth Shalom around Chesed, you just go to the VBS website, vbs.org, and you can find out all the information there. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a wonderful night, and stay healthy and stay safe. Take care.
My pleasure.